resulted in what we see as Pikes Peak today. Now, if you take a look at the rocks either side of the train right now, these are actually unique to this area and they have their own name. It is called Pikes Peak granite. Pikes Peak granite is made up of feldspar, mica, and quartz, which you may see glittering in the sunlight as we pass by. It is predominantly a pinkish colored granite that is in fact very porous and fragile. It is not the type of granite that we would use on our kitchen countertops. As we pass through here, you may notice some rocks with some very interesting shapes and some with some very clean-cut lines into them. This is achieved through a process known as ice wedging. Ice wedging is where water will get into a crack in a rock, it will freeze, expand, and over that repeated process, eventually it's going to split that rock apart. It's a little bit like if you have a bottle of soda that you want to cool off real quick, and you stick it in the freezer, you forget about it, and you come back and find it's exploded everywhere. That's pretty much the same process. Now as we head up the mountain today, you will notice that the rocks will get smaller and smaller. This because it's a lot more colder up there more often, and with an average rainfall of about 33 to 35 inches per year, that ice wedging process is happening more often, breaking the rocks down. And in case you may not be aware, the rocks around here are actually poisonous. Yep, one drop will kill you. Okay, so some folks need their coffee this morning. No, we love our rocks, we really do. We don't take it for granted. Such a tragic fault. Speaking of boulders, coming up on the 2C side, we're surely going to see a boulder really close to the train here. Once we pass that on the 2C side, take a look straight across. You're going to see a rock out there that's a prime example of how ice wedging can create some pretty unique shapes. And this rock just happened to fall and face us like a diamond off a playing card. Now coming up on the 3C side is Mini Hot. Yes, I said it was higher than Niagara Falls, not bigger than Niagara Falls. Just a mini ha-ha. It is in fact 8,000 feet higher than Niagara Falls. Alright everyone, let's have a little bonding exercise. If you happen to be seated in front of or by someone you do not know, introduce yourself, name and where you're from. Let's make some friends today.
Yeah, there is.
So coming up shortly on the 3C side is the side of what was Halfway House Hotel. This little flat area we're about to see out here on the 3C side, that is where the train station used to be. And Halfway House Hotel was just set back a little further into the trees over there. Now in the early 1900s, you could spend a week out here, room and board, for just $10. Unfortunately, in 1923, a fire broke out and the hotel burned down. The remains of the hotel were removed in 1926. Now get your cameras ready on the 3C side. We're coming up on our last waterfall of the day. This one we call Pipe Falls. Because this pipe is connected to the oldest continuously used hydroelectric plant west of the Mississippi. So we're now coming into an area known as Ruxton Park. Population currently 0. The little house we're about to see here on the 3C side, that is the caretaker's house. Some of the wood from Halfway House Hotel was actually used to construct this house. Once we pass the house here, take a look back into the park, you're going to see a little stone building back there. That is the hydroelectric plant. It was built in 1925, and when it was the world's first fully automated hydroelectric plant, and it powers approximately 200 homes in the local area. In 1931, for reasons unknown, the automation system was removed and a caretaker was put in place. Now, if you fancy yourself as a caretaker in this beautiful idyllic setting, you need to be two things. First of all, you need to be a hydroelectric engineer, and second, an executive Costco member. Because if you take a look down into the 3C side, you're going to see what is their driveway. And just to get back into the nearest town is a mere leisurely 60, that's right, 60-mile long drive. Now, do we have anybody on board from the great state of Delaware? Anyone from Delaware? No? Okay, no surprise, moving on. So we're in Pike National Forest, and just for a little bit of size comparison here, you can actually fit the entire state of Delaware into Pike National Forest with a little bit of wiggle room, being 1.4 million acres. Now, we've already seen a little bit of wildlife first thing here this morning, but keep your eyes peeled. You may see other wildlife out there. Other wildlife you may get to see out there are wild turkeys, porcupines, bobcats, mule deer, elk, moose, Sasquatch, bears, and mountain lions. Now, we do haven't seen any bears out there today because they are actually now starting to come out of hibernation. The only type of bears we get up here are black bears. There are no grizzlies up here. The only grizzly bears around here are the ones in Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. But black bears do come in a host of different colors. Cinnamon, brown, blonde, black, black with whites, but essentially they are all the species of black bear. Also along this stretch of track, we have actually been getting a lot of moose sightings lately, so keep an eye out for moose out there. If anyone happens to see one, shout it out on what side we'd all like to see. In Colorado, any flat area in a mountainous setting is referred to as a park. And coming up shortly on the 2C side is Deer Park. Quite often we see mule deer here first thing in the morning and in the evening grazing. If you take a look towards the back of Deer Park, you're going to see some trees back there with a cinnamon-colored bark. Those are ponderosa pines. They do not get this color bark until they're at least 80 years old. And if you give that bark a squeeze, you may get a really nice smell of vanilla or butterscotch. And on the 3C side here, these white bark trees that we're passing right now, these are aspens. Quaking aspens, Populus tremuloides. These are what Colorado is known for, with their beautiful golden yellow leaves in the fall. Now you may just think we passed about 60 or 80 trees out there. Actually, we only passed one. Aspens are in fact the largest land organism on the planet next to fungi. They're all connected together by one root system known as an aspen grove, and the largest aspen grove is located in Utah, with an estimated age of over 80,000 years old, with over 47,000 stems. Now, a couple of interesting facts about aspens. If you rub your hand on the bark of an aspen tree and a white powder comes off, you can use that as a sunscreen. Also, it has a similar composition to aspirin. In fact, deer that have just given birth have sometimes been seen chewing on aspen bark because it can be used as a pain reliever. Now, do we have anybody on board from the great state of Wisconsin?
No.
All right, I mentioned Wisconsin simply because our founder was a gentleman from Wisconsin by the name of Solomon Simmons. He was actually the mayor of Kenosha at one point, and in the late 1800s, he was out here inspecting insulators on a foul-weather telegraph system that was installed out here, and he thought this area to be so beautiful that everybody should have access to see this. However, not the way he traveled out here. Very uncomfortable 3-day burro ride, which he describes the most uncivilized thing that he ever had to do. So he went back to Wisconsin, got with his investors, and they got together $1.5 million, and in 1889 they came out here to build the railroad. 13 months later, on June 30th, 1891, we had our first customers, some of them being a church choir from Denver. Now, if anybody has any guess at how much a ticket to ride the cog rail would have been back in 1891? $1, 10 cents, 30. All right, back in 1891, a ticket to ride the cog rail would have cost you $5. Yeah, $5. That was a lot of money back then. In fact, in today's money, that equates to over $165 per ticket. And that ticket price remained the same for 50 years. Even though where that collection plate would go first. So in 1910, Solomon Simmons, he passed away, and his family took over the running of the railroad here up until 1926, when a gentleman by the name of Spencer Penrose had built the 5-star, 5-diamond Broadmoor Hotel and Resort in Colorado Springs. He bought the railroad, and we have enjoyed that union with the Broadmoor Hotel ever since. Now, if you don't think you've heard of Solomon Simmons, you may have. Anybody ever slept on a Simmons Beauty Rest mattress? Yeah, same guy set up the Simmons Bedding Company, probably as a result of that very uncomfortable 3-day burro ride, I should imagine. Now, if you take a look out of the 3-seat side, we'll surely be passing one of the old original passenger cars from back in the day. It now currently serves its purpose as a hiker shelter and a shelter for our maintenance and section crew should they be working out in this area. This is an area known as Mountain View. We're now at an elevation of 10,012 feet. So in 1806, a young Army lieutenant by the name of Zebulon Montgomery Pike was in this area. He was serving the southern part of the Louisiana Purchase, which was the land deal between President Thomas Jefferson and Napoleon Bonaparte of France that effectively doubled the land size of the U.S. at the time. And in the distance, Pike saw what he initially thought was the tip of a blue cloud. And once all the clouds parted, the entire mountain range here was laid out before him. So they decided to go on an expedition to see if they get to the top of the summit here. Unfortunately, winter was starting to set in, and Pike and his expedition, they were wearing their summer uniforms. Their supplies were running low, and the closer they got, they just kept getting hampered by blizzards, up until the point they were waist deep in snow, and decided to give up and head back down. Now, Pike never actually named this mountain after himself. In fact, in his journals, he just refers to it as the Grand Peak. He never made it up to the top of the mountain. In fact, he noted that he thought that no mortal man would be able to get to its pinnacle, and he also thought it was 18,000 feet high. So he was wrong on 2 counts there. The first person to actually get to the top was a botanist by the name of Edwin James. He was just 22 years old, and he actually classified our state flower, the blue columbine. So on July 14th, 1820, he got to the top, and for a time the mountain was known as James Peak. Now 200 years prior to this, the Spanish conquistadors that had settled in the area, they referred to the summit as Montana del Sol, or Mountain of the Sun. They also referred to it as El Capitan, or the captain, or the leader. Prior to that, the Native Americans in the area, the Ute tribe, they referred to it as Kaba Kaba, or Sun Mountain. To the Pawnee, it was Tusney, or Mountain that touches the sky. To the Arapaho, it was Heyotoyo, or the Long Mountain. And to the Hickory Apache, Yatayetzia, meaning mountain touching heaven, or mountain that holds up the sky. Now, over the years, this mountain has gone by many names by many different people, And there is actually evidence of Clovis culture in this region, so we're pretty sure they've had a name for the mountain. But since they predate written language by over 11,000 years, we will never know. Now, Pike was eventually given the promotion to the rank of Brigadier General. He fought in the Battle of 1812, and in 1813 at the Battle of York, in Canada, he was killed by a gunpowder magazine explosion. He was laid to rest in a military cemetery in Sackett's Harbor, New York. He died at just 34 years old. Now, it was because Pike kept such very detailed journals, it has made other explorers' job a lot easier getting up here, so they named the mountain after him. So initially, they called it Pike's highest peak. Then in 1859, the Colorado Gold Rush hit, and the term Pikes Peak or Bust was the war cry in these parts. And then eventually it was the newspapers that just loved to shorten things back then. It went from Pike's highest peak to just Pikes Peak, and it's been known that way ever since. In 1893, an English professor from Falmouth, Massachusetts by the name of Catherine Lee Bates was here in Colorado Springs. She was teaching English at the Colorado College, and that summer her and a group of other teachers decided to go on a trip to the top of Pikes Peak. However, they did not take the cog rail. They decided to go up by a prairie wagon. And since horses do not do too well at altitude, they actually have to transfer over to mules to get the rest of the way to the top of the mountain. And whilst riding on the back of a mule, Catherine Lee Bates is so awe-inspired by the sea-like expanse of scenery up here that she begins to hastily write down a poem. When she gets back to her hotel room that evening, she finishes off that poem, which is later put to music called Returner. And you may now know today as America the Beautiful. America the Beautiful almost became our national anthem. Our few votes. Now, if you take a look at these trees coming up on the 3C's side here, just in case you're wondering why they are growing at such a strange angle, actually they are growing perfectly straight. We are the ones on the incline here. Now, in case you may be wondering what makes our train tracks different from regular train tracks, because they pretty much kind of look the same. The tracks we have here, they're a standard 4-foot 8.5-inch gauge track, and the two rails that run either side, that's called the running rack, or the T-rail, that is there to support and guide the train. It's the one in the center that really makes all the difference. That one we call the rack rail, and it kind of looks like a row of teeth. And underneath this train, we have a series of cogs that run underneath. We have 4 in the locomotive at the back there, and we have 2 under each of the cars here, and they mesh with that rack rail, and that is what pulls us up the mountain. Now, well, we are one of 3 cog railways in the United States. The oldest one is located at Mount Washington in New Hampshire. There's another one in Quincy Mine, Michigan. And with ours, with 8.9 miles of track, going up to an elevation of 14,115 feet, we are the longest and the highest, and therefore the best. Now the trees you see either side of the train right now, these are bristlecone pines. Some of these actually date back over 200 years old. Car number 1, please stay out of that center aisle. We're on a 25% grade here. You have got further to fall. Please remain in your seats. Thank you. Especially keep your child out of that center aisle. I will not ask you again. Thank you. Now you may begin to notice that we are starting to run out of trees. We're now coming up to an approximate elevation of around 11,500 feet. So we're coming out of the montane zone. We're now starting to get into the subalpine and Arctic tundra regions. This is an area known as tree line or timberline. Due to the poor soil quality and the climate up here, it is not very conducive for growing trees. Now you may just start to notice out of the 2C side that the snow is coming up to the windows here. It may look nice and white and fluffy out there, but please refrain from reaching out and touching it. And it does have the consistency of concrete, razor blades, and sandpaper, and I do not want to see any red snow on the way back down the mountain. Thank you. Now we will be coming to a stop very shortly, so I do need everyone to remain seated for your safety and the safety of others. Once we have come to a complete stop, let's listen out for that one single whistle blast. That will indicate that the brakes are fully set and is now safe to get up and move around the train. Once we can do that, you're welcome to stand up, have a wander up and down through the train, and if you do this, please hold on to seat back loops and railings for your safety. They'll give you a chance to hopefully take some photographs out there, although our visibility has become a little bit less than what it was this morning. All right, everybody, hang on tight here. All right, there's our whistle blast. You're welcome to stand up and have a wander through the train. We're going to be hanging around here for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hi. So you're out here for one semester or two?
I'll be out here for 4.
We will leave here at 2:16.
Okay.
All right, everyone, our departure time will be 2:16. At 2:14, I will ask everyone to return to your seats at 2:14. We must have everybody seated for a safe departure. Thank you.
Here we go again.
Pass lottery winners on board, do we? We don't want to narrow our odds, folks. No, if that one fell, we have one more backup, and you've actually probably passed it on your way here. So they've lined the tracks up in such a way that in the event of a runaway, we have two big springs right down at the bottom there. Yes, they're called Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs. Yes, the jokes are all downhill from here on out, folks. All right, we've talked to you often enough coming up the mountain, so we'll let you enjoy the beautiful views on the way down here. Now, we're going to come through the train shortly, say hi to everyone, see how you're doing. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. We'll do our best to answer them for you. We're going to start down in car number 3 and work our way up to car number 1. We won't be surprised if some of you may be asleep by the time we get up there, because altitude does have that effect on people. So feel free to sit back, have a snooze, or enjoy this beautiful winter wonderland view out here. We should be back in Manitou Springs in about 40 minutes.
Stop that.
I'm sure. But if they're about to jump ship. No, I know. I think it's apple. Oh, you can take it.
I just saw it yesterday. A bit more. Two tours this year. One going last week. That's fair. But I know the Western tours in June, July. That's what it's don't feel it's like it's cool to say. But it's not for the first season. The road, quick way out. You got it. With the two trains. But then before the both of them, It's pretty cool. See.
Oh, that's fresh point. It's a rough mess. And that way. There's a lot of stuff. They drive for truck now. Oh, I didn't realize it. Oh, yeah.
The other one's like a fancy.
Just if you or just work away. No, I know. I just wouldn't want to do that.
I don't want to do it too well. She's still asking.
Yeah. Okay, so that means one truck or that's a truck that's and they're like really big boy, they advocate.
So,
I mean, the research has been done. It's fine. Yeah, that. Yeah.
well, that first couple of days, the reference of this earthquake, that will perform the injury.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that's been said.
That it came from the same house. Before the we have 2 days before.
Yeah.
That's good.
At least.
They determine the causes to why unvaccinated because we were vaccinated. Yeah, we still have. But other people have to.
Car at home. Raise my car. I got snacks. What's that?